quote some examples. We have seen 2009 Mumbai attacks happen, right? We saw 1999 Kargil war happening. It was Vajpayee who actually went to Pakistan, opened up and said, hey, let's, bury our differences and sit down together and find. And what did they give you? They gave you Kargil, right? You had Manmohan Singh talking to Pakistan, wanted to ease out trade relations, have better bilateral relations, and they gave you Mumbai. You had, Narendra Modi going to Nawaz Sharif's, I think it's his son's wedding and attending it. Making a very different, very open gesture, just going there unannounced, trying to being a friend. And what you got is Pulwama. Then you had open trade borders with on LOC with Pakistan with POJK, and what were you getting? You were getting arms and ammunition and narcotics. So my message to all those journalists and all those activists who say that we need to have this with Pakistan are the ones who really, if they go to Pakistan, are the ones who have to convince Pakistan to stop aiding and abetting terror, not only in Jammu and Kashmir, but in rest of India.
Hello and welcome to A Questioning Mind. Today it is my pleasure again to be joined by Raja Muneeb. He's been on the channel before and it was a Hindi language program, and today it's a special program where we discuss his latest article on Kashmir, how the withdrawal of the US troops from Afghanistan may have furthered terrorism in Kashmir and other things Kashmir. Raja Muneeb, very welcome to Questioning Mind again. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. Namaste and welcome.
Thank you, Sagarika. Namaste, and thank you for having me once again on your channel. So yeah, it's a pleasure to be back again here.
Thank you. So to begin with, let me ask you about your latest article. It goes through the 3 years since the abrogation of Article 370 and what has succeeded it. So if you could walk the viewers through what you've seen firsthand happen in Kashmir since then.
See, the last 3 years have been, I could say, different for Kashmir, because since the abrogation of Article 370, we did see some kind of lockdown happening in Kashmir, and then we had 2 successive lockdowns during the COVID period. Now, what that essentially did was that did take a huge hit on the economy of Kashmir, on the day-to-day life, because Kashmir primarily tourism industry and the horticulture industry. The tourism industry was very hard hit. People with ancillary businesses were hard hit. But we have also seen is that a revival of the government, revival of the economy happening in Kashmir, the government not losing its focus on reviving the economy of Kashmir, giving a lot of, they gave about 1,300 crores of package, a special package to revive the industries in Kashmir. Apart from that, we have seen the budget allocations which have happened in the last, fiscal year, and this fiscal year, they have been also humongous and very focused on overall development, on the equitable development of Jammu and Kashmir. What it also brought to Kashmir is a sense of security. Now, what I mean by that is, if you see the pattern in Kashmir I wouldn't go to last decade, but I'll go last 5 years or 6 years. There was a pattern in Kashmir where street violence had taken precedent every day. Almost every other second day, we would see street protests against the government, or stone pelting was a regular feature almost every Friday, right? And we had people getting injured, we had cops getting injured, we had civilians who were not able to run their business properly because the city center would be involved, areas around colleges would be involved, education getting hampered. So the first thing which has happened is that we have seen these things have ceased completely on the ground. Since the abrogation of 370, not even a single incident of stone pelting has happened. Now, what has that done to the psyche of the youth is that pushed the psyche of the youth towards a more positive kind of things. Now, what you see in Kashmir, a lot of events which are happening. You're seeing the youth of Kashmir, discussing small projects, looking at work, finding about education and colleges, aspiring to be there, going out and being into IAS or into armed forces. So that's a paradigm shift, I call a mental shift, which has happened from a total negative kind of, mindset to somewhat a positive kind of mindset wherein they're trying to participate in positive things in life. They're more worried about their income, they're more worried about their education, they're more worried about sports. We have seen so many sports person coming from Kashmir performing exceedingly well, you know being selected in IPL, getting medals in taekwondo, getting medals in kickboxing. So there's a shift, and that shift is a very, very big shift. Now, apart from that, also we have seen that what has happened in last 3 years, because the consistent effort of Jammu and Kashmir Police, Indian Army, and other security agencies and CRPF, we have seen a complete dismantling of terror network which is happening. The organized structure here I'm talking about. Now, they have been able to dismantle it to a large extent, owing to the fact they've gone very hard against the funding. The heart of the terror is its funding. Any terrorist organization requires funding for it, so they have been able to crack down. We have seen National Investigative Agency coming in and going hard on terror funding cases, arresting a lot of people, indicting a lot of people. Then we have seen Jammu and Kashmir Police coming and creating a special wing to tackle this menace. We have SIA, which is the State Investigative Agency, which is somewhat like National Investigative Agency, working closely with them, but independently, and looking majorly into terror funding, focused into dismantling the terror networks. So that has somewhere brought the terror violence down on the street. Now, I know there are a lot of people who would say that no, there were killings last year and there were killings this year, but if you look at the total statistics of what has happened, is that it has reduced by more than 4 to 500% compared to last decade. You know, I was looking at the data, and there were more than 400 and more than 876 instances of terror incidents which has happened before 2019, and now it has just come down to, last year it was just down to about 400 odd, right? This year it's further down to 62 odd. Now, what does that mean when it comes to terrorism? That means that Pakistan is very desperate to keep this terror plot, boiling in Kashmir. And they are now going after the softest of targets, the innocent civilians who do day-to-day work. They have not even, they're not even started going after the political workers. They have not started targeting normal, innocent people, whether they are whether they are Kashmiri Pandits, whether they are Kashmiri Muslims. And, most of them have been either businessmen or, at best, somebody affiliated, far flung from some political party. That's what they have done. Now, targeting behind pundits is specifically, and that is to send a fear factor, a fear psychology in the minority community, saying that if you want to come back to Kashmir, we are going to target you. Now, that is a challenge. But at the same time, if we see that one minority killing sets back the whole process of bringing back the Kashmiri Hindus, the Kashmiri minorities back to Valley. But it's not going to stop them completely from doing that. Why? Because the way security agencies have aggressively countered terrorism on the ground, we have seen about 100 plus terrorists killed in first 6 months in this year, and that indicates the fact that the Jammu Kashmir Police, along with the army and other security agencies, are actually right on their toes and right on the heels of these terror organizations. That is why we have seen what we call as hybrid militancy, which is essentially means it doesn't come from an organized sector. It's people who are individually motivated to become petty criminals. We've seen that around the world. You have these people where you pay the money, or you ideologically use them to just do a criminal act, to go and just use a pistol and to shoot and just come back. And what this guy essentially is, he's not in the terror ranks, but what he does is he might leave home in the morning, go and perform a killing, and come back and stay at home at night. But that's that's what hybrid terrorism is. A normal guy out of a community walking out could shoot somebody and just walk back, because at the end of the day, he has no footprint to an organized terror crime. He has no footprint with any terror organizations, but he comes from a sleeper cell which has been activated for a particular task, and then that sleeper cell could again be put to sleep for next 6 months or 2 months or 1 month, right? But even in the hybrid system of terrorism, we have seen that Jammu and Kashmir Police especially has been very, very successful in breaking the overground, what we call the OGW network, which is the overground network of the terrorists. That's where the hybrid terrorism stems from. So that's where they have stuck hard. And hybrid terrorism in today's date is a major challenge, but it's not a challenge which is going to be there forever. It's a challenge which might be there for next 6 months to a year. and then we'll see a complete roll down of this hybrid structure as well once these people are started taking out. So, and that has happened. We have seen a couple of hybrid militants getting arrested. We have seen militants, terrorists, which have been responsible for Rahul Bhatt's killing, killed. So hybrid terrorists which were used for specific target killings either have been arrested or been killed by the security agencies, and that is what takes the whiff out of these networks completely. When you talk about development, if you look at, this is the first time after abrogation of Article 370, it's very important that Jammu and Kashmir has attracted huge, and when I say huge, the humongous investments, FDI investments from UAE, from Qatar, from other countries. We are looking at about 56,000 crores worth of investments coming into Jammu and Kashmir, which have already been signed. There are another 28,000 worth of crores which are still in the pipeline. So we're looking at about 78,000 crore rupees of worth of investments coming into Jammu and Kashmir. Now, what that signifies is that next 5 years to 7 years, because these are on long-term projects, next 1 decade, there will be a significant improvement when it comes to that overall development of Jammu and Kashmir. You will see a complete change in the way the developmental aspects have happened. Complete change when it comes to the work culture. To more privatization would happen. More youth would get into privatization. So there will be a paradigm shift when it comes to the developmental aspects of Kashmir. But that's going to take time. But that's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Good. I was also going to mention the tourism aspect. It's big, one of the biggest footfalls ever in Kashmir, right? This season.
1.06 crores. Sorry, 1.06 crores. 1 crore plus. Yeah, and the impact is huge, because if you talk to a common person today, 3 years before down the lane, they would say something else. Today they are focused on, they're feeling it, that it's coming to them. It's working for them. They're having a good, dignified way of living. They're earning good from tourists, and they're looking at improving the infrastructure. They're hospitable. It's the positive shift is happening, and it's happening at a big level. Yeah.
Right. I think it also kind of signifies that the fear factor in the rest of the country seems to have reduced with regards to Kashmir as a tourist hub.
It will happen, Sagorika, eventually, because at the end of the day, when more and more people come into the valley, they interact with the locals. Once you interact with the locals, you understand that what you are fed by the media, or what you see overall in national media or international media, is a completely different different picture than what you get. Because any conflict zone, if you want to bring the violence down, you need to, people to people contact, and the more people to people contact from mainland and rest of India into Kashmir happens, the more perspective of a Kashmiri is going to change, the more perspective of an Indian is going to change, and that is what is happening. So yeah, I agree.
Interesting that you mentioned, the NIA, because I was just reading, and there are ongoing raids in Jammu as well as Doda, and they caught a hybrid. I actually wondered what a hybrid militant was, because they've arrested one from Doda. And it's interesting because that's not one place which I hear a lot about with regards to terrorism. I don't think it's as widespread in the Doda Kishtwar area, right?
Well, in early days, Doda has seen the worst of terrorism. There have been massacres in Doda. Doda has been highly affected. And, with the polarization we see happening around, it's no hidden fact, there is polarization. It's easier to do counter-radicalization, or, radicalize the youth. And you will have a one-off disgruntled youth who is radicalized enough and who believes in violence enough, to go ahead, or his motive would be. And there are a couple of things with this hybrid terrorism. It's not only radicalization, Sagorika. There is a huge aspect involved, which is we call it narco-terrorism. I think we spoke about it last time as well, right? So we are seeing a dangerous level of rise in drugs in Kashmir, 200% rise in heroin and other drugs. And what that essentially means is that, once you have a drug addict who is not able to fulfill his needs or buy his drugs, it's very easy to use him for any subversive activities, because at the end of the day, he's just looking for money. And unfortunately, the way this man is, dependent on drugs, he would go to any extent to carry out any criminal act. And that is one system these terrorists exploit, to get new youth into this hybrid fold, where they get assignments and they get paid for it, and they do get drugs for it as well. So yeah, in Doda, one of yes has happening. The whole valley has radicalization issues right now. I mentioned it in my article also that radicalization is happening, and the reasons behind it is that most of the youth of Jammu and Kashmir still are educated, but they don't really have the opportunity of jobs. Right, they're still struggling on that front. They're still struggling when it comes to employment generation, and somewhere when these things happen, it's very very easy for a youth to go or to a to a negative set and carry out subversive activities, and that's a trend which these terrorist organizations unfortunately have been able to take advantage of, and asking the youth to come forward. That's why we're seeing these hybrid rise of hybrid terrorism in the valley right now.
Right. Now that you say that the narco-terrorism has only increased, I mean, and at the same time, we're seeing so many raids in the NIA. We're also seeing corruption from corrupt officers from, say, the police force, as well as some of the other paramilitary forces stationed there, being discovered and routed out. So, is it as effective as the government wants it to be at this time? Because you have an increase in the drug related activity. You also have ongoing terrorism, although it's reduced, it's still happening, as well as the radicalization, which you've said is ongoing. Does that not play into the efforts being minimized rather than made maximum efficiency? Also, you had mentioned in our last conversation the Jamaati Ulema madrasas having a huge impact on the kind of education and radicalization that is ongoing at this time. It's still an issue, right? Those madrasas are still
They
functioning.
got banned. Once we had from a last conversation till now, that's a positive thing which has happened.
That's
The
brilliant.
government finally, yeah, the government came forward and banned those madrasas and those educational institutes. So that has happened. So that's what I'm saying. See, the endeavor of the government is to keep on doing the positive things to bring this down to the minimum levels. Whether it's corruption, we're seeing today that ED and Anti-Corruption Bureau (ACB) carrying out raids almost every day on corrupt officers. Now they might be lower rung officials, but my argument with Kashmir has always been that Kashmir is not an issue of development. When we compare Kashmir with other parts of the states, and I'm not going to compare it with any metropolitan state, but I'm going to go Bihar, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, all these places which also has violence, being marred by Naxal violence. But Jammu and Kashmir, the development has been kind of okay. The problem always has been of accountability. There was no accountability in Jammu and Kashmir. The scams run amok. People, the corruption run amok. Hardly any accountability. No bureaucrat, no politician has ever been made accountable for the misdeeds he has done, for hundreds of crores worth of scams and gotalas they have done. But slowly, that's coming around. They're bringing accountability into the system. It's not there yet. It should be, because at the end of the day, when we talk to youth and when we see any aspiring youth, he needs a fair he needs a fair chance towards a job. And when you see that you're applying for a job, and then you see corruption basically destroying his chances of getting into a job fairly, you see scams happening in job recruitments. We just had a couple very recently.
Yes.
Yeah, we had very recently one in SI and one in FAA. Right. And now that takes the hope away from the young generation, because these are the things which should not happen at the first place. Though the CBI is inquiring about it, and I'm pretty sure they're going to go hard on the officers which were involved, and they're going to punish them. But the point is, in Kashmir, we just need systems in place where these things don't happen at the first place. The transparency levels have to be built, and they have to be raised to a level where it doesn't come down to CBI or an investigative agency to come and look into the foray of all these things and say that, oh, something's gone wrong here. So accountability is something which definitely should be the agenda of the government going forward, to build trust with the youth. Because if they're able to set up that kind of accountability, I think there'll be a huge gap which will be bridged between the common masses and the government very, very quickly.
Right. So I think the police recruitment scam that has just surfaced some time ago, the rates are in connection with those scams as well.
Yeah, that has happened as well. That's happened as well. Yeah, there are about 30 people who have been charge sheeted, are under investigation. What's happening?
I see. So that was quite heart breaking for several people. I've heard from some of my Kashmiri friends that 11 families, and those are the only people who got recruited. And then I went on to social media posts where Kashmiris were discussing actual candidates who had appeared for the exam, were discussing their ranks and saying that, this person scored so low in one of the other exams in last year's exam. And I can understand somebody progressing a few ranks, but progressing so rapidly to the top of the list is a little bit unbelievable, considering that I have made only progress so much progress. So yeah, these are quite sad for actual families involved, because they obviously don't have the number of options that those people actually participating in the scams do.
Yeah, and
So
it's also about the students who participated and did well and got good numbers in this, because it's not easy to go back again and prepare again for the same exam and appear again. It takes a mental toll on you. Somewhere it has a mental impact on your own overall preparation. So it's more of that issue than 11 families. Yes, only the mother and father left away, brother, sister, everyone in there. That tells you the brazenness of the corruption which was in the system, or which still is in the system and prevailing in the system. And the thinking that they can get away with anything they want to, like it used to happen before. We have seen Jammu and Kashmir bank scam, where backdoor entries from PTP happened, and they were so brazen. And that culture of brazenness still exists somewhere on the ground, and that needs to be dismantled.
So even with the Roshni land scam, has something major happened? Have the people received their land back? Because I have not read of any progress.
No, the matter
Obviously, the
is still
politicians
subjudice.
are improving.
I
The
know the
politicians
matter is
still.
the matter is still subjudice in that sense. So unless and until the court doesn't come and give its verdict, it's not going to happen. But Roshni land scam was another thing where, and it was not about people's land. It was more like a government land which was taken away by these rich, influential people at, fraction of a cost of what they actually
Land
costed.
was
Right?
apparently taken by from a lot of farmers who could not pay back certain dues, or did not even have the occasion. So there were lots of initially private land lost to the government, and then that was redistributed amongst politicians.
No, most of it was government land. Most of it was the land which belonged to the government and had been leased out to these people. Now, what they did was this. They actually went ahead and came out with this Roshni Act, wherein they could actually buy these lands at a fraction of the cost of what they actually were for. So, excuse me for a moment. I'm sorry. I just need to. I'm so sorry. I just got a
No
call in
problem.
between. So yeah, and they bought these land at the fraction of the cost of what they actually would cost. So that's a huge scam, but it's subjudice to the court. So let's see how the honorable court decides on the land.
Nice. Apparently, there was also a biryani scam. I'm going to pull that up for you. But that was a biryani scam that has been pursued by the ACB, and ex Football Association was involved with sort of generating bills about feeding players with biryani, but there was way too much.
Reminds me, it
Demand.
reminds me. It reminds me with Lalu Yadav's fodder scam. When he was asked, "Well, how did a cow eat so much?" He said, "Go ask the cow. She has eaten it. I haven't." So it's the same modus operandi. I think they copied and just put it on the players and said, "We sold so much of biryani, they must have had it." At the end of the day. So yeah, it's funny, but it's sad. It's sad as well, because people abuse their position and the power, and that directly has an impact on the ground. That has an impact on the overall governance and overall structure, overall, you can say, confidence building measures, which we call between the government and the normal, common people. That takes a huge hit. So it's unfortunate the way they go about it. But then, yeah, it's not something we're seeing for the first time. We have a Jammu Kashmir cricket station scam, wherein ED has now issued notice to Farooq Abdullah regarding the same. So we're going to see some action, hopefully some action in that as well. But yeah, it's still very much on the grounds. Kashmir is unfortunately number one or number two, or the most corrupt state in India, and it needs to be brought down to number 10, number 11 at least. That should be the target.
Right. Now, one of the things I hear a lot of complaints about when, with regards to Kashmir, and I hear this on a lot of very popular podcasts and media channels as well, is that the politicians and the system is still the exact same as it was, except for a few changes. For example, some central agencies having more authority, like the NIA carrying out more raids. As it happens, a lot of the politicians have just switched camps. A lot of the businessmen who are funding these politicians, they remain the same, so their businesses go about unaffected. There are former terrorists walking around in the same neighborhoods that they used to terrorize, and they're out on bail. So these are things that, I've heard quite a few complaints about. There are Kashmiri journalists talking about those politicians. Now, former separatists or people whose either spouses were separatists are now in influential, if not powerful, then influential positions in the government, in media channels, etc.
Not really. What has happened is, I wrote an article about a year back calling single story syndrome in Kashmir. Now,
Right, you
what
did, yes.
if you remember, and if you essentially would go through it, you will understand that how the ecosystem of power and, all this separatism had worked in Kashmir. And obviously, you are taking them out, you're hitting their industries. So some of them have switched sides because they're opportunistic. They were there because they were getting something out of the separatist lobby. They were able to survive there, and now they think that they're going to come on this side and they're going to do the same thing. And they're just, switchers, we basically call them. So they would switch to any ideology as long as they stay in the business, or as long as they are able to keep themselves going. But it's not very easy to do that as well, because at the end of the day, the government of India is not a fool. They have their credentials there, but at the end of the day, some politicians, yes, unfortunately, have been able to do that. And the reason is that these politicians, no matter what, had some kind of an effect on the ground, some yield in the people's mind. And obviously, the government of India might be trying to leverage the same from them. So at the end of the day, at best, people who have switched sides from this side to this side are the most compromised people, because you know, they're at the mercy of the state, and they're at the mercy of the way they behave. The behavior is very, very important. But yes, conflict entrepreneurship is something, conflict economy is something which produces these kind of characters, wherein people do have the tendency to switch from one side to another side, based on the ideological shift which is happening, or any other shift on the ground which is happening. So there are very few people who might have done it, but I don't know anybody who's in a very high position in government and been able to retain that. That has not happened, because one thing the government of India has ensured is that people who were in the helm of affairs uh, prior to 2019, they don't stay in the helm of affairs post 2019, because they have this tendency of subverting the system and then creating damage from within. So yeah, that's not happening. But yes, people do have switched sides, from being from the separatist camp to the mainstream camp, and that's okay. Look, at the end of the day, if you are ready to stand under the tricolor, and if you're ready to believe that this is your future, I believe that everybody deserves a chance. Why not give them a chance, right? But if you're only there for an opportunity, but under a tricolor, you're going out and doing subversive acts. Still, you're still, doing something which is better for the Hurriyat or somebody else. But then that is a problem, and that is something which really, really needs to be dealt with harshly.
Right. Speaking of the tricolor, there was recently a Tiranga rally in Kashmir in Lal Chowk. While people were writing about, I think, lockdowns, etc., there were, I think, thousands of bikers gathered with the tricolor at Lal Chowk, and people were like, "Don't believe the whatever lockdown, curfew, etc. This is what is going on." So this is definitely a traffic jam, but there's no lockdown. So did you see that? How do you see the
It's a
situation now?
rally which was carried out. Yeah, it was a rally which was carried out by BJP's youth wing, BJYM. But look, that's the hypocrisy of the politicians in Kashmir. That's what I'm saying. That before 2019, almost every day we'd see street protests happening, we'd see lockdowns happening, we'll see hartals happening, we'll see Hurriyat leaders marching from one place to another, and government actually giving them that kind of security so that they could march from one area to another. We would see Yasin Malik coming out in Maisumai every day with police walas guarding him left and right. We had seen Mirbai's on one Eid, marching from Eidgah till Lal Chowk and then delivering a sagam on the same Ghantaghar. So, and for weeks we have seen people protesting. For months we have seen Kashmir Band post Burhan Wani and government not doing anything about it. At that time they didn't tell the separatists that it's an economic issue. The shops are closed, the education is closed. That was not happening. But one day you have a positive event and they want to make it out of negative event. They want to say that oh, the lockdown happened and education has suffered and this has suffered. So that's sheer hypocrisy. At the end of the day, they're just trying to play poor politics, and unfortunately, that is not how we see things. Because it was a one-day rally which happened in Lal Chowk. There were thousands of people, and obviously, you got to take care of security. If Mehbooba Mufti is walking to Lal Chowk tomorrow, is she going to walk alone? No, she's going to have an SSG cover with her. At that time, the same security is there. At that time, she doesn't say, "Why have you stopped the traffic?" Because I'm walking, traffic should not be stopped. On the contrary, she wants the traffic stopped so she could march with her men, right? So it's just petty politics these politicians are playing in the valley, and nothing more than that. That's how I see it.
Can you tell me why your view is so different from a lot of mainstream Kashmiri views? I'm just asking because the louder narrative is obviously the exact opposite of what you're saying. So when does this sort of start changing? You're
My thought,
mentoring you at the counter-radicalism
I
workshops.
I have always been. I have always been. See, I'll tell you something. Since I was a child, I always believed that I'm born into a country which is multi-cultural, multi-ethnic, and the beauty of this democracy is that. And since you travel from a very young age, and you come to see the reality on all the sides. Yes, there has been times when violence in Kashmir has impacted my mind, has made me question few things, but it's not taken that thing away from me ever that I belong to this country. I travel on an Indian passport. I have friends all around India. We might have differences in opinion, but at the end of the day, we are with each other. We are of the same tribe. So at the end, I don't see there has been a change in me. Yes, there were things which were happening 2019 before, the ways local governments were operating, or the way they were going hard hitting onto certain things. We saw favoritism from their side. I was completely opposite to that, and I would say that New Delhi is to blame because they are giving these local politicians a lot of free hand to do whatever they're doing in Kashmir and ruining the Kashmir future. But at the end of the day, it was more because I have always associated myself with India. I've always been a patriot, and I will always be a patriot. So maybe that's why I'm a bit different. I don't know, but that's how I've been since I was born. I don't know.
Well, I hope that affects a lot of your contemporaries and younger viewers in Kashmir, not just the rest of the country, but especially in Kashmir, because that's good to see. And so, with events like the Tiranga rally happening and actually gaining that much crowd, despite, of course, the security being an issue, but it still takes guts in a conflict area to go out and make a statement so bold. And these are eventually, outside of the mob, individual people who live there. So it's still a very brave statement. So do you see that there is some sort of change in the attitude of the local crowd, local populace, especially when it comes to overt nationalism? And we are seeing a lot of people marching, even children marching with flags. Not just now, not just near the Independence Day celebrations, but even last year, we've seen some of these smaller rallies being taken out through some of the gullies in Kashmir. So do you see that there's a sort of change in temperament of some families at least?
Absolutely, there is, and it's on a large level. I've seen a lot of youngsters, a lot of children coming out, doing Tiranga rallies. After Tiranga rally, there was a debate in Lal Chowk, first ever national TV debate. Nobody would imagine it's going to happen. India Today did it on the eve of 5th August on application of Article 370, right? And you had contrarian views coming out of that debate, but at least that is democracy. That is where the essence of democracy started. You had tricolors all around. You had people. You had a very young generation. You had very young girls and boys sitting in the crowd holding tricolors. Today in Shupian, we have seen school children with tricolors, and these are unimaginable things before 2019. And slowly, it is affecting the young minds. There are so many, and kudos to this younger generation. They have literally come out and shown that they have, they really want to integrate, and they really believe in the Tiranga and in the tricolor, and they really stand there. And so many events happen where these kids, and it's not because they've been asked to do it or they fear it. It's just that they come out with all the love and affection. They want to do it. I mean, they just come out, they hold the Tiranga, and it's so proud. It's good to see.
Good to know that. Because I think growing up like that does make a huge impact. I think that's where a lot of patriotism is ingrained in a lot of us. So it's good to see that happening, catching on so quickly. In terms of development, I just read that the Delhi to Kashmir railway line is near completion. There's a lot of infrastructure development in terms of tunnels, in terms of road development. Is that progressing as quickly as it needs to, considering it's a conflict zone and border area?
No, it's actually progressing very fast. I mean, after 2019, the projects which were in limbo for last 20 years have been on near completion, almost completing. Same with this rail project; it's been hanging there for last 20, 25 years, right? But now we are seeing a very, very serious effort by the government to get it done, and it's gonna finish very soon. It's almost done. Same we saw with the highway, Jammu Kashmir National Highway. It's horrendous. This highway used to be 8 to 10 hours to 12 hours of travel in 300 kilometers. Now the distance is, depending on the weather, it's anywhere between 4.5 hours to 7 hours. So obviously that is happening. The train is gonna start very soon. I think by the end of this year they will be completing this project as well. So yeah, it's on a fast-paced move. It's on a fast-paced move. These things are happening very, very quickly.
Good. And in terms of other projects, not projects as such, conveniences, such as the internet. There's been a lot of international hue and cry about terrorist attacks causing the government to clamp down the internet and that being a fundamental right, etc. What are your views on that?
See, internet is a fundamental right. It is in Finland. It's not in India. It's a necessity, obviously, in today's date and age. But at the end of the day, it's more propaganda than the truth. I'll tell you honestly, because I don't remember any encounter where internet has been snapped. I told you we had more than about 62 terror incidents this year, and not even in single terror incident any internet was snapped in Kashmir. The internet was working as normally as it could. The only snap we had was yesterday because of the procession Shia and the protest during the Muharram they had planned out. So keeping the security in view, because there was some inputs that there could be an attack on these Shia minorities, as we have seen them happening in Afghanistan and Pakistan. So they were apprehensive of that attack, and that is why I think they disconnected the internet in some areas, not in entire valley. It only happened in some areas of Srinagar, not in entire Srinagar also. So in a minuscule area of Srinagar, and it was restored by the evening. So these are more propaganda run by Pakistan and its ISPR and its associated teams that internet is a human right issue in Kashmir and all that. Unfortunately, no, it is not, because internet is seemingly working in Kashmir. It's working right now. It's working perfectly, and any encounter doesn't disrupt any internet, you know, bandwidth at all. It doesn't get disconnected. So it's sheer propaganda, no truth in that.
No, I would still, even at the time when I remember, I think 3 years ago, there was a bit of a clampdown, an extended clampdown, and it just seemed to me that the right to life is much more fundamental than the right to internet, and still somehow it did not. It was not discussed in that manner. It was not discussed with regards to security being more of a concern, life being more of a concern than connectivity. And for the viewers, Andaman was disconnected, has been disconnected until I think 2019 or 20 is when they received Geo. There are parts of Himachal that do not receive internet because there are border areas, and again, until Geo arrived, we had no internet. So it wasn't just Kashmir. However, this has been raised. There's been a lot of hue and cry raised about this in the international media, and I wanted to discuss that. Since you mentioned Afghanistan and Pakistan right now, I think it's a good way to segue into the other part of our conversation, which is the withdrawal of the US troops from Afghanistan and how that may have affected Kashmir and terrorism in Kashmir. Do you see an uptick in the kind of activities that are happening? with the weaponry and the drugs and the money just left, and then of course taken very quickly by the Taliban. So how do you see that affecting Kashmir?
See, when the American withdrawal happened, there was a lot of what we call in technical parlance information warfare that Pakistan really tried to cash on to saying that, look, we have defeated US in Afghanistan, we're gonna defeat India in Kashmir. Right? That's a huge rhetoric and a narrative which was called out. And that played on for a few months. It did onto the psyche of the people, but eventually it died on because of two reasons. Number one reasons, Talibanis back in control are not really back in control in Afghanistan. If we look at the factionalization of Taliban, which has happened, the Shia-led faction has completely broken away from them. They have their own problems. And on top of that, Taliban is grappling with a huge problem of zero economy and malnutrition and no food for Afghanistan. They have their own set of problems to look at. Now, also the Haqqani network, which we discussed last time also, and the non-Haqqani network, which is a more pragmatic way of Taliban, which is a different Taliban, the Quetta Shura and the Qatar Shura. They're entirely two different things, having ideological problems between them as well. Also, the way Pakistan has gone in the last year, especially the downfall of Imran Khan, their diplomatic failure all across the globe, both China and US not happy with Pakistan, the way Pakistan went after Afghan withdrawal, has impacted Pakistan more, I would say, than it has impacted Kashmir. Yes, we have seen weapons coming in from Afghanistan. We have seen M4 carbines. We have seen the 1911 Colts. We have seen some night vision equipment, but then they are very minuscule. It's not that they have come in huge numbers. A few of them have been able to sneak. They have been able to sneak them through the border and arm their terrorist organizations here, and eventually they have been recovered from terrorists as well. But that kind of mass weaponry transfer from POJK towards this side has not happened. Neither I think Taliban is in a position to give away huge consignments of weapons to Pakistan to further infiltrate Jammu and Kashmir, because as I see Afghanistan, and especially after Al-Zawahiri's killing, what I see is that Afghanistan Taliban internally is going to have a lot of conflict within, and they will struggle to keep the power within themselves. It's owing to the two facts. One is the killing of Al-Zawahiri has done is that it's completely against the Doha agreement, which they signed in Qatar with US, wherein they had promised that no foreign terrorism, surprisingly, a terrorist organization will be allowed to have its footprint in Kabul. But again, what is significant in Al-Zawahiri's killing is that he got killed along with Haqqani's son-in-law and his son. So that tells you the deeply embedded, relationship between the Pakistan Taliban and the global terror organizations, and how Pakistan is still, trying to leverage something out of these global terrorist organizations. But Afghanistan is struggling with economy. The money have been, under sanctioned. I was reading an article today wherein, 90% of their children are malnutrition. So it's going to go through a very huge humanitarian crisis in next coming 1 year, and it's going to be very difficult for Taliban, to control this kind of crisis, and that will lead to a rebellion within the ranks, not only within the ranks but within the districts and their ethnic. We can see an ethnic rise as well. So Taliban is going to be on a very, very slippery footing for next 1 year. And so is going to be Pakistan, because Pakistan is on a brink of, bankruptcy, economic bankruptcy. I just wrote about it last week. They're asking IMF to fast track their funds. They're asking US to fast track their funds, but it's not happening. And the political instability which is happening in Pakistan, Shahbaz Sharif coming back into power, essentially Nawaz Sharif holding power back. You have seen Musharraf back in Pakistan telling you that a faction of army is still trying to get control of it, right? So Pakistan in itself is going through a very chaotic moment. It's very difficult. It's going to be very, very difficult for Pakistani army to be in absolute control in Pakistan. At the same time, the Pakistani politicians are losing their face. Nawaz has lost Punjab, which a couple of years ago was unthinkable. but today he ceded to PTI, right? So there is a change happening in Pakistan in itself, and the way Pakistan is economically sliding, I don't think they are in a position where they are going to create major disruptions in Jammu and Kashmir. Nevertheless, and it's indicative of the fact as well, from 143 odd infiltration attempts in 2018, last year has just come down to 28. So that tells you how how low the infiltration attempts are, and how difficult it is for Pakistan to actually hold on to the idea of sending Taliban across the border. I don't think Pakistan will be able to do that, or Taliban actually will be willing to lend out its fighter for Kashmir in coming year or 2 years. But what you will see is that some kind of infiltration happening from Lashkar-e-Toiba or from Jaish-e-Mohammed, which are more orthodox wings and very closely aligned with Pakistani ISI, Masood Azhar and Hafiz Saeed. These organizations will still be making investments in Kashmir. You might see some terror attacks happening in Kashmir. They will try to keep the terror plot boiling in Kashmir. But overall, I think we are firmly in control in this terrorism game, and we will be in control in future as well.
Uh, I'd just like to, delve a little bit deeper into that, considering you have a lot of insight into Pakistani politics. With the youth of Pakistan being very pro PTI, is this driven purely ideologically or out of frustration, out of lack of knowledge? What is going on? I mean, I know he's gone from being a cricketer to being a prime minister to being hosting Twitter spaces as just an internet celebrity. But what is the situation with the politics in Pakistan? How do you expect it to play out? Does Bajwa make a major comeback? Does it go back into army control?
It is
ISI?
back
What
into the
happens?
army control. It's still under ISI. See, Pakistan majorly is a army governed country. The army establishment has never lost complete control on Pakistan. Now, one thing we have to give to Imran Khan, he is very tech savvy when it comes to social media, and he knows how to get the youngsters worked up with his narrative and with his kind of appeal he's trying to do. But let's not forget why Imran Khan was made to lead and why he had a problem with Bajwa. At the first place, he was somebody who was bought in by Bajwa. Right. It never, PTI came in power because of Pakistani army wanted them, and Bajwa wanted him to be there. And Bajwa, he doesn't have any independent foreign policy. Pakistan can never, a friend of mine interestingly said the other day, said Imran Khan said that, look at India, it's a very Garat Mulk who has an independent foreign policy, and we don't have an independent foreign policy. And I told him, I said, look, that's a huge rhetoric he has played, but because you and me understand this, let me tell you something very honestly. Pakistan can never have an independent foreign policy. And he asked me why. And I said, look, what I think about it is because Pakistan is a client state of terror. And any client state which is operating under foreign influences can never be allowed or will never have an independent foreign policy. So Imran also knows he doesn't have a foreign policy. But it's the war between the Pakistani army which has costed Imran Khan his job. And primarily it's got to do with the, ex-ISI chief Khalid Hafiz, who Imran wanted to retain as ISI head. And eventually Imran wants him to be, the next army chief of Pakistan. And I think Bajwa is somebody who got done by Imran's very clever social media play, able to woo the youth and move the narrative, saying that he's been a victim of foreign conspiracy and that is why he has been taken down. If you see, even this journal, ISI journal, comes from Punjab, and they have a huge influence in Punjab, and PTI winning 15 seats is not out of the blue. Obviously, the factionalism within has worked for Imran Khan. And also, what they have done is, if you look at Bajwa, and this is how I see it, what they have done is that they have actually made, PPP, PPP, Bhutto and Zardari and Nawaz completely irrelevant in the eyes of people of Pakistan. So this could have been a fixed match as well, where they would have asked Imran to step down. They would have got all these incumbent parties back into power, shown them that these parties are no good enough and sliding economically, and made Imran more strong electorally, and then claim that, see, this Pakistan is a complete democracy and people have completely electorally gone ahead and chosen Imran Khan unanimously to be the Prime Minister of Pakistan. But understanding that wheels within wheels, it was the Pakistani army who plotted, who sabotaged, and who sided with Imran and gave him that leverage to play on the ground to create this kind of narrative and this kind of politics, hoping that that changes somewhere the image of Pakistan, which has been badly damaged in the last 2 decades because of the terrorism they have supported overtly and covertly. So Imran is a good drama, Imran is a good play, but yes, it is going to cost Pakistan in the long run, because we are seeing an increased differences between US and China happening. There is a huge diplomatic row which is going to happen when Nancy Pelosi was in Taiwan recently. A few days ago, we saw Chinese jets basically coming into Taiwan and breaking that.
It's still
So
on.
there's a huge global shift happening. Yeah, it's very, very interesting where it is going to go. But Imran is going to come back in Pakistan with the help of army. The army wants him back, not that he's capable of coming back on his own.
Of course. So you're suggesting that the army wanted a front of democracy, of a successful democracy for Pakistan, maybe just easing the monetary inputs into it via IMF and World Bank, and that would have helped. But somehow that was also blown apart by Imran's search for an independent foreign policy,
Yes, absolutely.
and he will come back again. Well, that's extremely interesting because now it seems a little bit unlikely, but like you said, it'll happen with the army support, so that's when it will be more likely. So when do you see that happening? Also, another question is with Al-Zawahiri, being executed, assassinated by the CIA, US CIA drones. So that happened right after Bajwa also had a visit to the US, and there's a lot of talk about the IMF loans now being a little more, even though they came out with a statement saying that Pakistan did not aid the US in this operation. So do you think that the loans will now flow through, and this is just cover for something that is very obviously a pro-US move, or in search of a loan?
That's typical Pakistan. That's typical, predictable Pakistan for you. Remember, Osama bin Laden delivered by Pakistan to the US forces in Aptabad, right? In lieu of the removal of sanctions, and they were going through very hard time in Afghanistan. They have, US actually spent $8 trillion in the war against terror in Afghanistan. Just think how much Pakistan would have got. Pakistanis are claiming we got $12 billion. The US is saying we gave them in excess of $18 billion, right? So that was Pakistan then, and this is Pakistan today. I wouldn't be surprised that Pakistan actually delivered, Al-Zawahiri to the US for quick dispersal of their loans. Entirely a big possibility. That's what I said a client terror state is. It holds other nations hostage to delivering high-level targets, high-value targets, in lieu of money and other, advantages, or what you call other goodies. So Pakistan in trouble. It's a perfect timing for Al-Zawahiri to be removed and for somebody else to come in, because now why I say it was perfect timing is because if you look at Al Qaeda, the ranks within Al Qaeda were not very happy as well. They were not very, very happy with Al-Zawahiri, because Al-Zawahiri was not able to bring that trust within the Al-Qaeda terror organization the way Osama bin Laden had been able to do that. He was able to hold Al-Qaeda largely together, but he was not able to build that trust in the organization or make it lethal the way it was. And with its number two dying in Iran, sorry, he was taken out by the Israeli forces in Iran, which is
Yes.
surprising, right? So yes, Al-Zawahiri was somebody who was, past his age, holding, who could not, renew that vigor into Al-Qaeda. And if you look at the two men who are supposed to take over from Al-Zawahiri, one is his son-in-law Al-Maghribi, and the other one is I think it's Muhammad Al-Abdal. Yeah, Muhammad Al-Abdal. These two presently in Iran as well. Now, these two are the people who are highly known for their huge strategic and military, minds and their skills to bring Al-Qaeda back to where it was, somewhere back to where it was in terms of funding, recruitment, and its operations. So I think it's a very well thought trade out by Pakistan to US. Saves Biden some, criticism back home as well. He's not doing well since he's been elected in US. It's not gone very well, right? So yeah, it's a win-win situation for Pakistan and for US, but I don't know how long it's going to sustain itself.
Right. So perhaps we see some part of the loans coming to Pakistan now that they're selling off their lions, their cheetahs, all of their animals from countries to get some money. But yes, the sad part about client states like this is that the elites continue to make a ton of money from the conflict that occurs. Their money is stowed overseas, but it is the common people who are left clueless and suffering. And the same has happened in Afghanistan. That is one country that has not had any respite from war in decades. So that's
Seriously, my heart goes out for the people of Afghanistan. Honestly, the way they're, look at the way women are suffering, their children are malnutrition, no economy, no jobs. It's not that Afghanistan has run out of food; it's just that people have run out of money because they have no work. And the plight the Afghanis are in, my heart goes out for the people there, and the way they are surviving. I don't know. It's going to be a difficult time for these people and these children. Yeah.
And it is the Hindu nationalist, majoritarian, fascist government of India that is providing one of the largest aid packages to
Yeah, 200 crore aid package. India is
country.
providing 200 crore aid package, yes.
In addition to wheat, in addition to everything else. And Afghanistan, the Taliban, in fact, is praising India and saying that we don't have any enmity with India, etc.
Well, obviously, because now they would see. I'll tell you something. It's different to be a mercenary group. It's very different to be somebody to be in the government. Taliban could be an excellent terror organization who's very good at fighting wars, but it's no good at being administratively competent to run a country. They are warlords. They might be able to hold on to the areas, but they don't know how to run the economy of the country, and that's a problem with Taliban, right? Now, the problem with Taliban, again, the problem with Afghanistan is if Taliban fails in Afghanistan, the way the politics of Afghanistan has shaped up, the way Afghanistan itself has come into shape up, it dangerously opens it up for something like an organization called ISIS. And that is a danger which the world needs to see, especially the US needs to recognize and the world needs to recognize, because any stronghold of ISIS, because of Taliban failure governing the country, is essentially going to be really, really bad for the whole of South Asia, and not only for South Asia but also for Europe and for US. So that is something which is very, very dangerous. That's a red line I see in coming years in Afghanistan.
I agree with you completely. I'm just a little unsure about the US's commitment to stopping anything like that, considering that they have botched it up in Iraq. They've botched up everywhere that it's been an issue. So and they arrested an ISIS agent in Natla House today in India. So I think in the run-up to the Independence Day, which is a major Independence Day, right? It's the 75th Independence Day that is going to be celebrated. So I do think that the security situation is a matter of concern in India as well as surrounding countries. So moving on from more, to slightly more comedic thoughts than more sobering ones. What do you think about a lot of analysts from India who go to Pakistan, and journalists, they'll go to Pakistan, they'll talk about how, India is basically being overly protectionist and almost fascist by not opening up to neighbors, and how we should allow complete trade, and we should allow not open borders as such, but really just have a lot more engagement with Pakistan when it comes to dialogue, when it comes to trade opportunities, sports, etc. What do you think about such, ideas?
See, there's nothing wrong in having more trade relations with Pakistan, or having more open relations with Pakistan. But then the onus is not on us. The onus is on Pakistan, and history tells you that the onus is on Pakistan to stop terrorism. Let me quote some examples. We have seen 2009 Mumbai attacks happen. Right? We saw 1999 Kargil war happening. It was Vajpayee who actually went to Pakistan, opened up and said, hey, let's, bury our differences and sit down together and find. And what did they give you? They gave you Kargil, right? You had Manmohan Singh talking to Pakistan, wanted to ease out trade relations, have better bilateral relations, and they gave you Mumbai. You had, Narendra Modi going to Nawaz Sharif's, I think his son's wedding and attending it. Making a very different, very open gesture, just going there unannounced, trying to being a friend. And what you got is Pulwama. Then you had open trade borders with on LOC with Pakistan with POJK, and what were you getting? You were getting arms and ammunition and narcotics. So my message to all those journalists and all those activists who say that we need to have this with Pakistan are the ones who really, if they go to Pakistan, are the ones who have to convince Pakistan to stop aiding and abetting terror, not only in Jammu and Kashmir, but in rest of India. Because that's the primary concern of India. And unless and until that doesn't happen, there is nothing fascist about it. There's nothing fascist about protecting your own people from terrorism. What do you expect? You expect to be open and get your people killed all around the country due to drugs and due to terrorism, or do you want to protect your people? So what's fascist about it? I don't, this is a narrative which has been created. Oh, it's a fascist government. I don't see any fascism there. I see country first. I see citizen first, individual first. I see security first. And any Indian should be proud of it, that at the end of the day, our lives matter. And the government is actually thinking on those terms that our lives matter. So what's the problem? The problem is only for those who had opened the shops on both sides, who are milking there and milking here, and trying to make money here and there by keeping them engaged in some sort of a dialogue or something. And now suddenly they have found that their shops have been shut and they have a problem. Well, I'm sorry, but your shops were running on the blood of innocent people. For God's sake, stop this business. And Government of India has rightly stopped that business. I don't see what there is a problem. That there's no fascism there. Right. There is patriotism there.
That's very, very well said. And you're right. These are people who actually go on to those countries. They deliver lectures there. And if you see that a nation that has pledged hostility to you is applauding them as pundits, then they do belong to a different side than a patriotic Indian side. But this is a narrative that gets a lot of coverage in English media, in international media. These are the voices that will often be amplified and not yours. Again, I'm sorry about
Unfortunately, yeah. That's okay. That's okay. I mean, as long as we say it out in the open, and that's what matters, Sagarika. As long as we reach people, even if 10 people listen to us, that's important. Understanding why it is happening. I'll tell you, and I'll give you a very, very, very small example. We have students who have gone here on visa to study medicine in Pakistan, and they have returned with AK-47s from there, become terrorists and come back. So that's the sort of open borders we're talking with Pakistan. That is the sort of cultural exchange we're talking with Pakistan. Pakistan is not going to give up on any opportunity. We provide them with a friend's hand to come and bite you as a snake. And unless and until Pakistan doesn't realize that it's not going to happen, I think Government of India is well within its right to scuttle any trade or any diplomatic relations, not diplomatic relations, but any cultural relations. And they're absolutely right. I don't see the problem. We need commitment from Pakistan. We need to see that Pakistan is really trying hard to make better relations, normal relations. Yeah.
No, it's very interesting because a lot of the people saying all of these things are quite on board with boycotting Russian cats. They're throwing Russian cats, Russian breeds of cats out of some federation.
They can throw away Russian cats. They can bring in Persian or American dogs. That's not the point. The point is, at the end of the day, what's important for this country?
India to a different standard. India has to have a different standards with countries openly hostile to it. So that's a thing, but it does gain a lot of
you can't embrace an enemy when he has knives in his hand. You got to get ultimately stabbed in the back, and that's what Pakistan has been doing all the time. So it's naive from people who actually believe that embracing an enemy is not going to get you stabbed in the back. It actually is going to get you stabbed in the back.
No, but we eat naan kulcha, they eat naan kulcha, we speak Punjabi, they speak Punjabi, so we are bhai and same.
Obviously, Pakistan is born out of India. We have that cultural, the same culture. We do speak the same language. But that doesn't mean that it gives the right to Pakistan to be our mortal enemies. On the contrary, Pakistanis should have been friendly to us. But since their inception, since their birth, all they have done is they have been that, a venomous kind of country which is out there just to bite you and to stab you. And that mentality in Pakistan needs to change. They might speak Punjabi, but they're hurling abuses. They're not throwing roses at you, right? So what's the point of speaking
Very well
Punjabi when
said.
you're going to abuse and do that?
That's very well said. I think this clarity is a lot more visible in a lot of Pakistanis. So, Shoaib Akhtar, for example, somebody who's been very, very well appreciated in India. He has a huge fan following in India, and I remember at the peak of his career how well loved he was, and he used to hang out with a lot of Indian cricketers, right? But he's very clear about the fact that he believes that Pakistan is is a different nation, and it does not matter if the culture is or some aspects of the culture is the same. So and it's okay if Pakistanis insult India because they're very clear about their objective. So.
True, because see, I'll tell you, once you're a sports person, it's a different thing when you're mingling on sports. You have a different reputation to carry around. You need a fan following of a different sort. But once you're retired, you actually come to your hardcore ideology of what you actually believe in your nation, right? And that comes to the fore. I mean, look at Imran Khan when he was a cricketer. The woman in India would go with sindoors hoping that he would marry them, right? Imran was a so-called liberal holding a glass of wine in Cambridge. And look at Imran Khan today once he gave up cricket, right? So that is the reality of, that is the reality of politics in Pakistan. That's the reality of identity of Pakistani, politics and Pakistani identity, which is so hardcore, embedded and built, and that comes to the fore eventually, one time or another time. It's going to happen. If you see the documentaries of Imran Khan and reviews of Imran Khan from 80s and 90s to Imran Khan today, I think they're two different brothers. It's not the same Imran Khan. It's a different Imran Khan. So obviously, we have seen this kind of, they do that. I call it posturing, a posturing for a particular stand when you are in a profession, and a posturing when you're an individual and trying to appease your own people because, you stand to gain from their ideology. You want to be in politics or whatever, or in a government. You want to be somewhere in PCI, PCB, Pakistani Cricket Board. You want a higher position. You want to be a coach or whatever you want to be. That's going to happen. The only guy I have seen in Pakistani cricket who consistently has been, I would not say entirely apolitical, but somebody who has had a guarded view is Wasim Akram. Wasim is somebody who has always been neutral on both sides. He has not commented much. He has not been anti-India a lot. He has not been anti-Pakistan a lot. He is a kind of a guy who was, he's, I would say, a diplomatic kind of a character, a diplomatic cricketer, I would say, between India and Pakistan is Wasim Akram, obviously.
Interesting. So we can still retain that fan followership. He was also somebody.
And still he has a lot of respect in India. People in India still like him.
Nice. Well, Muneeb, it's been an absolute pleasure. I look forward to talking to you again, and I look forward to more updates from Kashmir from you on, with your articles, which are very in depth, and I really appreciate the time you take out to write
Thank
such
you.
the comprehensive articles on Kashmir. For the viewers, I'm going to link a few of his latest articles in the description box. I'm also going to link in a couple of blog posts from Shaunak Agarkirkar, an author who has written about the games that Al-Zawahiri has played with the CIA, with his handlers in Al-Qaeda, in Taliban, and all of these players that were involved. So it's been a pleasure, Muneeb. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Sagarika. It's been a pleasure to be with you on the show once again. And, it was a really, really nice conversation. Really, really thankful for having this once again. Thank you.
Thank you.